Welcome. I'm Annie Warmke from Blue Rock Station.
I'm Carrie Starr from Cherokee Valley Bison Ranch.
That's good when you get the two mixed up. That just means that we're just simpatico
right.
with our work, for sure. And we're here today because we're representing Women Grow Ohio Rural Action and the SARE, the NCR SARE Research and Education Grant. Carrie and I founded Women Grow Ohio about 4 years ago because we wanted to work together, first of all, and that seems to be a trend these days that women are wanting to work together more in the farming world. And we also wanted to network with other women who were doing a variety of jobs within the food production industry. So then I guess we got kind of upset because we realized that we were considered invisible. And that's the part that got us going forward. So before I jump ahead, I just want to say a couple things about Women Grow Ohio. It is a project of rural action, which is a volunteer-based group whose goal is to demonstrate the important work of Ohio women in feeding the families of our great state. And Women Grow Ohio programs are focused on connecting and uniting Ohio women in agriculture, including livestock farmers, vegetable and fruit growers, homesteaders, and urban backyard garden producers. So today, we're going to have a lot of fun talking about just exactly how you can assess your resources and figure out how do you make a living at what you love to do. So let's go to the next slide so I can prove my point, provided the computer cooperates.
Yes.
So technology is not our friend today, but we're going to work it out. So how about if you bring the mouse over towards me and there we go. It just likes me better, but it's not normally liking me better. Anyway, so why don't you share this statistic, Carrie?
Well, at the last ag census, these are the statistics. There were almost 4 million acres being farmed by women in the state of Ohio. And we're making an impact of $230 million. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, 28% of the farmers in Ohio are women. So we don't have a bigger voice.
I know, I don't think we really have any voice. So we're trying to change that by bringing women together. So today we're going to talk about setting the course. And setting the course is all about which button do we hit? It doesn't want to work. I hit the right one and then I hit a different one and they're all not cooperating. Technology. Okay, so to prove my point even further, did you want to say something else? Our technical assistant is going to keep control of the mouse so that we don't have to keep switching. Anyway, thank you, Madeline. So it was really interesting because when we got ready to put together setting the course, which we did a couple years ago, there was this headline almost right away in the Farm and Dairy Journal, which I get every Friday, and the headline read, 7 options for dairy men in a tight market. And I was thinking, don't women milk cows or goats? Or I milk goats. So anyway, it was the headline, and I don't know why I was surprised, but I was. So
it just shores up our mission.
That's right. Proves that we do exist because we don't exist. So anyway, so today though, we're going to be talking about having a plan. And the plan has to start somewhere, and that's what we're going to do today is to show you how to start your plan. The challenge that we have, I think, as a nation and as farmers is that we tend to be without a plan, without any kind of idea about where we're going, and we expect it to work out, but it doesn't work that way. So I like to tell people, don't be Christopher Columbus, because he didn't know where he was going when he left Spain. He didn't know where he was when he landed, and he never knew where he was. He did a whole lot of damage. He killed off whole cultures. And then when he came home, he didn't have any gold, which is what he set out to find, and he didn't know where he'd been. And that is how lots of people do business, and it doesn't work. You might get lucky, But if you're a woman, the odds are against you getting that lucky. So I say, let's work together and let's have a plan. So we're going to walk through a few ideas that we have about how to create that plan. And we're going to ask you to think about the following questions as they relate to the business that you want to create. Most people go into business or create a nonprofit because they are in love with what they're doing. But it requires a lot more than that. It requires a business plan, it requires marketing, it requires 24/7 connection, just like being a parent, and a whole lot more. So the first question that we have to answer is, what will I need to sacrifice? Or maybe I've already sacrificed it, but I still don't have my plan. So what do I need to sacrifice? So, you know, in the beginning, when I first came to Blue Rock Station, you know, I didn't have any water. I had a cistern, and so I had to carry water, and it was crazy. And, you know, water weighs a lot, and when it's slippery and it's miserable outside. But eventually, because I had a plan, I was able to work with an EQUIP grant and fill out some paperwork and wait a long time and do some surveying and all that kind of stuff. But now I have a really great 1,500-gallon cistern that sits in the ground and doesn't freeze, and I have water. And I feel like a rich woman in the process. So the next question is, what excuses have I used for not setting or completing my goals in the past? You wouldn't be guilty of that, would you, Carrie?
I probably am.
Oh.
You know, I initially had the dream to raise bison, and I started reading about it, and it was very intimidating because everything I read said how expensive it was. And I was a single mom at the time, and I thought, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to afford to raise bison. So I got lucky, and I was savvy and creative, and
You still are.
I still am, yes. So anyway, it was that being savvy and creative that helped me get past those excuses. Yeah.
So the next thing that is really, really important then is to identify who are 5 people that you could call on to help and support you, and write those names down with their contact information. We're kind of old-fashioned where we say speed dial, but you know, how to text that person, how to Facebook that person, how to Instagram that person, whatever it takes. But we need to know that we're going to have support as women, particularly because we don't have all the answers. We might have gone to college, we might have grown up with family that have been in farming forever, or like me, I do have ancestors that were farmers, but I never knew them, and my parents would have been insulted that I'm a farmer after.
Right, and a lot of times women aren't included in the training on a farm. You know, it's the boys that get to do all the fun stuff, and the girls are kind of put aside as,
or we're the bookkeepers.
The bookkeepers.
In the census, in the USDA census, women just in the last few years have been counted, because before that we were always saying we're the bookkeeper, and there was only one slot for the person on the farm to be counted, so it was always the man. So I'm hoping our numbers increase this with this last census this year. Anyway, so who are those 5 people? And be sincere, because these are the people that are going to show up when you need help. They're going to talk to you on the phone. They're going to tell you when you're wrong, and sometimes they're wrong, but that's all right. It makes you think. So next, what are some of the special skills that you possess to reach your goals? So we've got a little bit of a list here, but it's not inclusive by any stretch of the imagination, because lots of us go into what we do, as I said earlier, because we just love the idea of it. I know when I first started with Blue Rock Station, creating it, the word sustainability was not a common word, and everybody was saying, well, we should be green. And I said, no, I think green's buying the product, and sustainability is how we operate. So I didn't even know, you know, I was just making a lucky guess, but I was right, because that's the word that we use now. So I think we have to say, what are the skills I possess, and be brutally honest, because there's going to be a list of things you don't know that you need to know. So next, what activities What activities do we have that might appeal to the public? Now, you might think that's kind of a goofy idea, but let's say you're thinking about growing produce, and you're thinking, I'm just going to go to the farmer's market. But you're not going to make a living just growing food and going to the farmer's market. You have to be savvy and look at the resources that you have and say, all right, how can each one of those resources add to my bottom line of making a living? And making a living is doing what you want, but also earning a livable wage. So what other kinds of things exist, other activities that might draw people to your farm or your booth or whatever it is that you're going to be doing? We have workshops at Blue Rock Station. We invite people to come and help us on building on projects. We have some tourism kind of things that are in a town near us that might appeal to people. We also have a big state park. So what are all of those things? You know, not just the things that people normally think of.
So, as Annie mentioned, you'll need to develop certain skills to have a successful business because usually you're starting out on a shoestring budget. So, some things that you need to be good at are carpentry, like if you want to build a fence or build a building to have people come to your farm to get out of the rain or whatnot.
Or repair the chicken door where the hinge fell off last night.
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
Things like that.
That kind of stuff that you can't afford to call somebody to come and fix every time that something needs done. It might be ugly at first, but you know, you roll with it.
Looks like Picasso did.
That's right. Good enough is perfect.
Well, let me just say too, that it's also about a sense of independence. You know, if I'm always depending on somebody to do a lot of basic things that I need, it may not cost me money. It may be I just have nice friends, but I have no independence. I have no sense of I'm doing this.
Right.
I think that's pretty important.
Project management's pretty important because there's a lot of things to do, and if you don't know how to manage your time, you're going to be up the creek pretty quickly. Yeah.
And many more. And we both put welding because we wanted to learn to weld. And I did take a class and it was super fun, and I encourage everybody to do it because you're always needing to weld some little thing. It's obnoxious, really. So next, what criticism are you going to face from the people in your life, and some of those people we didn't even invite in, like neighbors, but you may be deciding to, as the picture shows, raise turkeys, and you're going to do it with the chicken tractors, or in this case, turkey tractors.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're going to decide that you're going to become organic, and you live next door to somebody who just thinks spraying is the next best thing to white Wonder Bread. So what's the criticism that you're going to face by what you want to do, what you're proposing to do, what you think you might like to do? What are your neighbors going to say? You might not even know them that well or at all, but it's good to know their views on things. And if they're all in the exact opposite direction of you, then you've got to develop a strategy of how that's going to work for you. What motivates me? That is super important. Of course, money can motivate me when I don't have enough. But mostly I'm not that motivated by money. I want to get a fair price for what I'm doing for my work, but I find that there are lots of other things that motivate me. Definitely anger, that probably motivates lots of people. But organizing people and working together, that's a big motivator for me. When everybody's in the kitchen and I'm teaching, or all my interns are in the kitchen, I just feel so good about it. It makes me want to do more of that kind of thing.
Right.
And also, number one for me is when you tell me I can't.
Me too.
I
Oh yeah, watch this.
That's right. So what will the rewards be if I work towards my goal? And for me, I say this every time we have a tour, I'm rich. Every day is a gift, and I really believe that. But there are also short-term goals, like if you say, I'm going to fix the hinge on the chicken door today, or I'm going to get all those tomatoes planted, and whatever that is. But what are the rewards? And for me, also the rewards are that I get to meet a lot of interesting people, because lots of people are coming to visit, and just life rewards that I feel good about myself.
Mhm. So who is gonna benefit from me reaching my goals? Me. I'm gonna have better health and a confidence. I'm a pretty shy person.
No.
I know, it's so surprising. So it was often hard for me to get a conversation started, but now I have this really great story of how I became a bison farmer, and it always gives me something to talk about. So it's boosted my confidence a lot. My family, we always have really good food to eat, and a nice environment around our house and scenery to look at. It's given me a vision and a dream to carry through with. That was our first bull, Charlie, and it was love at first sight, and that really, just seeing that handsome face every day gives me a reason to get out of bed.
I can't help it, it doesn't look handsome to me. We need a good picture
He's a
there.
little shaggy, but you know.
He's big.
Put your picture there. What's your vision?
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it?
And as you said, money is a motivator because we all need money to live, but overall, or more so, it's the meaningful work for me. It's, you know, knowing that I'm building soil and providing good food for not just my family, but other families too.
I think though, we can't take away from an income to sustain me, because I can think back when I was young and I had a small child and I ended up in a battered women's shelter and I didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no security in not being able to pay your bills or have a safe place to live. So I think income to sustain me is, we deserve that. That's part of why we're sitting here today, is because women are really invisible in the farming world. And we have to be visible, because honestly, we hold up more than half the sky. If we ever let go, whoa, look out. So that's my sermon.
That's a good one.
Okay.
So how's it going to benefit my neighborhood? We have a lot of buffer zones around our farm. So we have a lot of wildflowers, and we have a lot of bees and birds and butterflies. So we're benefiting our neighborhood with providing pollinators, which are critical when they're in our neighborhood, which is an unconventional neighborhood. There's so many monocrops and things like that there aren't places for bees and whatnot to be. So
the thing I would say about that too is that if I was listing a resource, I would list that as one of my resources, because that could become a farm walk, or it could become a kind of a tour, or it also could become something in an application for a grant that would allow you to move ahead of someone else, because you identified that as an important resource for your farm.
And I believe they even have payments. The USDA has payments for pollinators.
Farm Service Agency,
yes.
FSA, your local FSA, check it out. They've got some really interesting things for conservation now, and they're looking for people to participate. So, did we do community?
No.
All right, let's do this one.
We provide to our community that there's a more interesting way to live than just monocrops.
Interesting, that's a good word. I'm sure they would say that in my neighborhood.
Well, and I'm gonna say, we've had some wonky weather the last month or so. And one of the great examples that was very obvious was, we have a lot of grass on our farm. And we got over, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 inches of rain. And our farm absorbed all of that rain. But you know what happened across the road where all those monocrops were? That water rushed and it covered the road with mud. All that water just ran off.
Topsoil.
It ran off, it ran into the little creek, and then downstream, a neighborhood downstream, the next town, they were getting flooded because all that water just ran straight off the fields and into the waterways and flooded the creek. Whereas our farm was sitting sitting pretty because it was absorbing all that water. So our farm is a benefit to not only our community, but to the community down the road too.
Well, I think too, the work that we do, there are lots of kinds of communities. It could be, for us, it's Women Grow Ohio, that's a community virtually and in real time. But also like local towns, the farmer's market that you go to sell, that's a community. So I think the work that we do in being more sustainable and working on conservation benefits all those groups as well, and many, many more. So who would be excited about what I want to accomplish? And this is important because who are the people that are going to encourage us? Now, we listed those first 5 in the beginning when we first started talking, but who are some like-minded people? People who maybe don't live on a farm or really don't care about farming, but they like us or they care about the issues in another kind of way. Also, people that are just starting out on their quest, they may find that they want to join up and they want to be supportive. So, and then who are those people who want to buy my product or products? And who are the people that want to sell me things because I need things for to grow my products or to milk goats or whatever it is. So who are all those people, and understand who they are in terms of how they pertain to my work and my business.
Yeah, I think my feed guy's pretty excited about what I want to do because I'm buying all the feed.
Yeah, yeah. So who would be frightened by what I want to accomplish? And I think on the face of it, people might pull back from that question and say, oh, who would be frightened? But I think we're already talking about people who are very traditional in their farming approach by growing one crop, or corn this year and soybeans next year and corn the next year. I think that we, and as women, we add to that sort of intimidation. Maybe that's a better word than frightened. But also, in my own life, our community had a hard time with us because they felt like, well, they sent nasty letters and said thought we were better because we ate salad, and I thought everybody ate salad. And at one point, somebody came and killed one of our llamas to basically show that they were in charge. And so you can't always know who it is that's going to be intimidated, but I think we owe it to ourselves to understand that that can exist. And as women, the reason we have our buttons, I am the farmer, is because we had a lot of conversation in the beginning when we were organizing Women Grow Ohio, and also in all the education that we do. And we said, you know, people come onto the farm and they go right to the male that's there. He might be 14, you know, it wouldn't even matter. And they start asking the questions. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm the farmer. So, and you don't think of that happening in, 2018, but it's the way it is.
And this has resonated with so many women.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And not just women who are in farming, but also women who are associated, because we had a couple of meetings with some people in different state organizations that work with people in farming. And at the end, so we were saying we want to be called women, not ladies, because we work hard and we're farmers. And they kept calling us ladies, and so I got kind of upset about that. But at the end, we passed around the buttons, and every woman but one who is not a farmer and does not live on a farm took the buttons and put them on. And the woman who wasn't the farmer gave us a little money for the rent for our next meeting. So these are not women they're pretty traditional, but they really understood what we were talking about and why we wanted to do what we wanted to do. And I started out feeling bad about demanding to be called a woman, and then at the end I was like, whoa, this is pretty exciting. So anyway, so we need to also understand that in having a plan, having an infrastructure, starting a business, there are certain things that just have to happen. The government has to have their due. They want to be paid taxes, and there are a number of programs that can, through the government, where you can save money on tax on your land. But these are all things that you need to know. And so who are the 5 top professional people meaning people who hold licensing in things like accounting and law, or lenders. A lender could be, a bank, or somebody from the Farm Service Agency. And anyway, consultants, who are these people, and are they people who would understand what we're trying to do? So for me, I came from a corporate life to being a farmer and running a sustainability center. So who were the people I could have brought from my old life to do this? Not really anybody, because they didn't really get it. They were trying to understand why I was going to be a farmer. So, or why I am a farmer. I think they're still wondering that. But anyway, so who are these people and how do we rate them? So if I have an accountant that doesn't really get what I'm trying to do, then I need to move on. Or if I have an attorney, say I want to form a trust or some kind of conservation area for my farm, the attorney doesn't really understand where I'm coming from, then I need to find somebody who does. Also, neighbors. I just told the story about neighbors, whether they're neighbors that are on a different road or on the same road, but how are they feeling about the business that you want to create, or the farm you want to create on the land? And it's important to know that, because a lot of times I see when I do consulting, women are saying, we're going to buy this piece of property, and I say, well, did you go around at least twice and interview the neighbors? And they're like, no. I was like, well, I think you need to, because as they say, fences make good neighbors, but they don't always cure the problems. How about the sheriff and the deputies? Are they supportive of businesses like yours? We can look at the next slide. There's more. Yeah. The game warden. This may be a person that's really important in your life, or a biologist that can help you if you're trying to do different things with your soil. Who are those people out there that are going to help you make that soil do what you need it to do, get more microbes, whatever. Definitely government officials and regulators, and this can go all the way from the kind of building that you're going to build, because we built a house that's completely out of trash. And so we needed to understand what the regulators at every level, local, state, and federal, had to say about what we were trying to do and what kind of support that they could give to us. And then certainly economic development staff, because, for instance, today we're sitting in the ACEnet office, and they're a really great group. You should look them up for helping people who are doing the things that we're doing. And that's a very brief definition, but I'm sure you'll hear more later on in the series. But also the development staff could be the tourism people, because you want to become a tourist destination, an agritourism site. Who are those local economic development staff people? And get to know them, because they may know of grants or other economic opportunities. They may be able to connect you with the right people. So it's good to have a list of those folks and know who they are. So next we're going to talk a little bit about what could I do to improve the rating of those who may be limiting in how they can help me with my business. We're going to talk about USDA.
Okay, yes. So one of the things you mentioned were government agencies. We used to be limited what we could do by Jared's wages, my husband's wages, and then we learned of a small, a microloan is what they call it, and we were able to work with the Farm Service Agency and get funding to help us not have to budget our own farm, to get a little cash flow in the beginning of the season when cash is a little bit tight. You're having to buy chicks and things like that. So it's been a great help me move past
the CSA woman.
The CSA woman, yes. It's helped me move towards that and be able to grow, because that was limited by funds before. Mm-hmm. And last year we actually were able to get a loan for a herd bison, which really helped infuse our bison business.
Yeah, and for every county has a farm service agency. It may not be directly in that county because they've been merging some. And there are local farmers who serve on a board that you can talk to, and the loan officer, at least in our area, in our region, because she's taking on some more now, is very good to work with. So USDA has a lot of programs, and the ones for women are, I know your grant, your loans and things were not specifically for women, but under their rules, women are considered underserved. So there's a few priorities, like for example, if you wanted to become organic and they do reimbursement for the fees, they charge a registration fee, but as underserved as a woman, you wouldn't have to pay that fee. So check it out. There's a lot of things out there that can be helpful. So let's talk a little bit about what are your greatest fears around the project that you want to create. What are the risks that are involved? What are the obstacles? Because fear is probably the greatest factor that holds us back. I have, I can make myself have lots of anxiety around my herd and all that kind of stuff, but I don't feel fearful. Maybe I should have had more fear, I don't know. But I always felt like if I got that 5 people and I had people to call on and I was willing to learn and make mistakes, because that's pretty important, that was all going to work out. So what are some obstacles that you feel like you faced?
Money. Money was a huge obstacle.
Like cash?
Like cash, yeah. To get the money to start the bison farm. Yeah, that was my major obstacle. I was lucky to have property. I guess my mom was kind of an obstacle because initially she was leasing the property out to someone else to bale hay on the property, and I wanted her to let me kind of have reins of the
Let's
farm.
give up that income.
Yeah, give that up. But yeah, so that kind of was something that was holding me back because I was afraid to ask my mom, and I just kind of said, hey, by the way, I bought a herd of bison.
And it's going to be delivered on Friday.
Yeah. So anyways, she was kind of on board after I said I bought a herd of bison. So
didn't have a choice.
She didn't really have a choice.
Well, sometimes that's the strategy. I think for myself, the biggest obstacle I have had has been the need to, just a big learning curve. I mean, and I think we all face that to some extent, because especially if we're not trying to use traditional methods, like for me, for goat herding, but also in, building buildings. I can't overcome the laws of physics, but I can do everything else. I can build buildings with tires and cans and bottles and whatever else. So, I think it's really vital to understand what are those obstacles, because then we can, it's like I like to say, if we don't know what the rules are, we can't break them.
That's true.
And so obstacles are about setting rules and then saying, all right, how do we get around them, over them, or ignore them? So sometimes that's a good thing.
So while you're looking around, what resources do you have available to you? I had land that I stole from my mom. I didn't really steal it, but what materials do you have that can be repurposed? We have a shed that has been, initially it was a shipping crate that I put a roof on and used tarps on the side and then put metal on it, and that was a garden shed. And then when I got animals, I drug it down the hill and it was a pig shed, and then a goat barn, and now it's a turkey barn. So it's been repurposed
Flexible.
many times. It's been very flexible, yes. And we're lucky that we live in a time where we have so much online resources. Even if you don't have broadband at your house, you can go to the library and look up anything you can think of, you can find on the internet and watch a video about and learn how to do something. Social media, you can, there's multiple groups, there's bison groups, there's goat groups, there's pig groups, there's anything, and you can say, oh my gosh, I'm having this horrible problem, what can I do? And usually there's somebody there willing to give you some advice. And
Or lots of advice.
Lots of
Yes.
advice. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. So, but anyway, it's out there, and so it's a good time to be farming. 10 years ago, when I started raising bison, the internet wasn't all that, especially not where we lived, and we had to rely on books, and we would drive around and look at other fencing and things like that, because we built all of our own fence. Of course, we'd never built any fence before, so we just drove around and like, oh, so that's how they did that, and yeah, that kind of thing. But it's much easier now because you just watch a video on how to build high tensile fence.
I think also when we talk about resources, there's a whole movement around young people wanting to learn by doing, and so lots of people graduating from college with a lot of debt, but they're not able to get a job, or they don't really have the skill sets to make a living at whatever they do, and they also don't have skill sets to do carpentry and welding and all those things. But there are lots of young people out there, and they are a resource, and they're not free labor, because believe me, having an internship program, they can be costly, but it's worth the investment. I think when we look at something as a resource, we also have to say is what do we have to invest in that to make it worthwhile or useful. And so there's a lot of give and take. So, and I think I know there's no way that, without social media and online stuff, I don't think any of us would be in business today, because we have the ability to create a marketing plan that helps us to get the name out there. So the other thing that's super important is to make a list of all the physical resources that you have at your disposal. And the reason for this is that's going to help you to understand if there are other pieces that lie within this realm of what you're thinking to do. So let's say you're going to buy 40 acres and it's located in a hilly place, and there's lots of woodland, and maybe there's a little creek, or as we say in Appalachia, a creek going down through it, and or you've got hay meadows or some kind of woodland that's really exciting for some reason, for skiing or hiking, or some rare thing that's living there that people could come and see. Yeah. And so it's really important. And is the property going to be deeded or leased? Are there state and federal allotments? Is the land encumbered in some way? So some of these things we've listed here, but there are lots more. I think some of the ones that are really important have to do with what you were talking about, Carrie, about how that land has been managed. So if it has been cropland, there are going to be erosion control issues. There are going to be water flooding issues. It can happen even if it's been well managed. But has it been sprayed, and you want to have an organic farm, or you don't care? You want to have people, because you're going to have an on-farm site little market. So do you have adequate parking or the potential for that? And what's it going to cost to create that if you don't? It says local newspapers, and that can be a good thing, but newspapers are sort of falling by the wayside. But can you get some stories in local media? How well can you do it? Like if you're in the middle of nowhere, no road to get there, how are you going to get people there? So what exists that helps you to move people in and out of the property, if that's what you want to do? What's the 100-year floodplain look like? Because it might say everything's cool as long as that one thing doesn't happen. When that one thing happens with the 100-year floodplain, everything you've just worked for doesn't exist. Or you say, hey, it's going to come, let's make a pond, or let's make a lake. But to just be honest about what are those physical resources. And then also what exists on the property already. It may not even be the way you're thinking about it. So maybe there are buildings, or maybe there aren't. On our land, there was, I wouldn't call it a building even in the loosest sense, but it had been clear cut in the 1970s, and this was like 1993, 94. And so lots of sassafras, lots of brambles, all the things that come back when the forest is going to reclaim. And then this poor little pitiful thing that was sitting where they had made a logging road to go in and out down through the hills and everything. And so they were the example of sustainability. So the uphill side where the water would hit it coming down the hill was made of block, which they had brought from somewhere else because they didn't match. And the downhill side was made of some block, but then there were tin and then it had a tin roof and no ends on it, so they could pull things in to repair. So I got some guys to come and help me build doors for either end of it. And I slept in there and had the tools there because I could lock them up until a coon came and started wanting to visit. And then I went to town and got myself a saw, and I closed in the eaves so the thing would come back at night and pound on the building and everything. It was such a pitiful building. But today it's called the Peace Porch.
Oh.
And it's a straw bale structure, and it has a big moon made out of cans and bottles, but it's white because it's plastered over. And it's really an exciting, really beautiful building, a wonderful place to sleep. I wish it had been that nice when I was fighting that coon. So, with a baby and a coon.
Yeah, and location and proximity, I think that's kind of important too.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to get people to your farm, you want to be close to something and
Good roads.
good roads. Otherwise, it's more difficult to get people to your farm.
Yeah. One thing I often say when I'm driving home, and I'll say, we're so lucky because we had no idea we're going to buy this land and we're just going to make a place for our family to come to hang out when we need to get away. And we could never have dreamed that we'd be doing what we're doing today. But if we had picked something that was really far away or on a worse road, it wouldn't have worked. So it's a really important piece. So climate, that is something that we have to consider. We are in a time of great instability with everything in our culture and also weather and insects. So heat, cold, insects, health, all of these things contribute to climate. And so it's important to understand and look at, let's say you want to raise fruit trees, and this is something that I have planted over 100 fruit trees since I've lived at Blue Rock Station, and I currently have 5. Because I didn't understand that because of the clay and also because the sandstone is so high in the table of the geology of the rocks and everything, that the tree had nowhere to go. And the water would leach down and then just come back up because it had nowhere to go and everything would rot. So all winter it would spend regenerating its roots, and then in the spring it would try to grow, and then we'd have a frost. So if I had been smarter, more educated about what I was doing, I would have done it very differently. So when I moved all my trees, my fruit trees, into tires, I had less problems, and I also moved them into a place that was more protected. And the newest trees that are doing great are European stock. So they bloom, they set those pods later in the season. But so it only took me 14 years to figure all that out. It was a gradual education. So it's
Sometimes the learning curve's a little steep.
Oh yeah, it was, for those trees, it was very, very steep. So, and also like where we are, snow, one year it might snow like the Dickens and you never see the ground. The next year it didn't snow at all, and we thought we're gonna be living in the temperature of Atlanta, Georgia, 2 years in a row.
Yes, the only thing certain about our climate right now is uncertainty.
That's right, and everything else.
Yes.
That's right. So let's see, what else do we want to talk about? Well, so all of that's important with buildings, fences, corrals, equipment. Maybe there's some old stuff laying around that you want to make into a really cool sculpture. But what exists? I mean, this is the thing. We just really need to make this very detailed list. You need to sit down with some of our family and friends and those 5 people that are going to support us and just look at everything and analyze it. And we did this, we've done this twice now, where we did a focus group with former interns and friends, and they came for the weekend, and we looked at everything. We looked at the river, we looked at the ice cream place that we liked, everything. We went on a boat and looked at how to get off the boat and where the beach was that's down on the river that I love, and the things that they came back with, telling us we didn't see. We didn't see those necessarily as resources, or we might have thought it was a resource, and they're like, when is that a resource? So it really helped us to have direction, and it really put us in when we were in a place of uncertainty and wanting to mix things up a bit and make more money, or we were gonna be empty nesters or whatever, that really worked for us. And some of those things involved some of the things on this list, so. And then other attractions, not just things that people might do to entertain themselves as far as, the sculpture museum or something like that, but also wildlife. I know in the state park near us, there's a birding station there. There isn't anybody there to tell you about the birds anymore because the state's cut things back, but it exists. There's a place to ride horses there. We had llamas, we took them there and went trekking with llamas. I had this great idea, we would create this fishing, everybody fishes where we are, the kids and their parents and everything. So, and the river's so polluted, they say don't eat the fish or whatever. And so I thought, let's do a conservation program where we teach fishing. And the state of Ohio, we partnered with the state of Ohio, and they put me through a training, and I got a bunch of other people to go with me from my little community. And we learned how to do regular fishing and conservation, and we learned fly fishing, which was super fun.
Oh, wow.
I was the first woman in the state of Ohio to get certified to teach fly fishing. I've never been though, but I got certified. Anyway, and so I thought we'd make this map of the great secret fishing hole. And everybody I told it to was so excited about it, but nobody would buy it. No, the little store that was nearby and everything, they were like, yeah, that's a great idea. A lot of great ideas, Amy. So, but these are all resources that still exist that we keep marching out each year and looking at and saying, well, that river's sitting there.
You just never know when it's gonna click. You just keep doing things and.
That's right, massaging it.
Yeah, the other day I had a group of homeschoolers come out to look at my weeds. I saw someone post that they wanted to have a weed walk, and I'm like, come to my farm. We've got beautiful weeds. And so they came out and they brought the kids, and we walked all around the farm, and I benefited because the lady that came, that organized the homeschool group, showed me a bunch of different kind of medicinal things that we had on our farm that I didn't know what they were. And my kids got to come out and, romp through the weeds and play in the brush and walk through a creek. And so everyone benefited. So to me, it's just weeds. But to these kids, it was something really cool that they don't get to see every day.
Yeah. That's interesting too. I think there's a movement of people that are interested, because when we had our Bodacious Woman weekend and there was a problem and we had to sort of kill some time. So I said, let's all go find some medicinal things we can put into the salad. And every woman was like, I'm there. And when we did the evaluation, that was the number one thing that they liked. And it was just a spur of the moment thing. But they also liked the weeds. They tasted good. So
Yes.
Anyway, we're gonna need to sort of move ourselves along here. So let's move on to talking about amounts of money. With potential hazards, we've talked a little bit about that already in a number of different ways. So let's just quickly go through the money and sources, and we've talked a little bit about that too, so. Well, so I'll just say this, because this is what we say in our business, is that when you want to start a business, the number one reason that small businesses fail is, first of all, they don't have a plan, and that plan does not include cash flow and how to have enough money to keep the business afloat until they make a living. And so the first year you're going to bleed, meaning you're not going to make money, it's going to cost you. The second year you're going to bleed some more. And the third year you might break even, maybe towards the end of the year. The fourth year, you're going to make a little money, and then year 5, you're going to think, all right, it's going to be okay, and then you're going to find out that you have to keep doing what we just said about analyzing your resources and how do you move forward. And again, we're talking about farming, because farming is not a vocation that pays a living. And we're saying, look, you have to be able to do all these different things. So when we make milk, when we have milk from goats, we teach class on how to make simple cheeses. We don't sell the cheese, but we serve it in our tours, so we get paid for people to eat the cheese. So just being able to say, look, all these different things that you make a few bucks here, a few bucks there. And if you think about dollars as drips coming from a leaky roof, you know, every drop starts to fill the bucket, and that's what you want to have happen.
So how long can I sustain myself until I can make a living with this business? So what all can I do to make money while I'm building the business? So here's a list of ideas. I had an off-the-farm job until I didn't have to. My husband still has an off-the-farm job because insurance. 1 year I did farm camp. I called it farm camp. I essentially babysat kids, but we did lots of farm activities. And they begged me to do it every year, but I just kind of lost my desire to do it when the need for that money wasn't there anymore. But it was one of the things, you know, you just got to be creative. Weed walks, you know, how can I make money from weeds on my farm, selling to herbalists and things like that. Yeah. So anyway, this is a good list.
And then who are my allies and who are my adversaries? Again, this is maybe a little bit different than who are my friends that I can, who will support me. But I know now that there are people within the USDA which are my allies, and they have been a good resource, or different groups of people who are in different kinds of businesses that I couldn't have imagined, you know. And then who are my adversaries? Well, I would say that some of them are my neighbors, and in the loosest sense, because if anything goes wrong, you know, they just really, they don't like us, and it's too bad because we're very nice.
That's right.
Too nice maybe, but anyway, so it's important to know what does that mean, because it can impact your business, or you're just waiting and saying, look, if so for example, you might have a cat that bites somebody, you know, if you know that potential sits there, then you say, all right, let's make sure, what do we do about that? Whether it's allies, adversaries, or cats that bite, because I had a cat that bit somebody once. He wanted me to cut his head off. Oh, like, oh no. So saying you're sorry works. Anyway, so, and then lastly, how persistent will I need to be to reach my goal? And I think it's important to write a little statement about how persistent. So you're gonna have to work 24/7. You're gonna have to take every dime you've got and borrow some. What are those things that you're gonna have to do? And how long do you think that's gonna take? That's really important.
And then double it.
Or triple. Yeah, it's like doing finish work, you know, it always takes more. Anyway, so let's just say at the end, what we like to do is to share advice. And so just in closing, we've got a couple things we want to say is that, first of all, what's the best advice, Carrie, you ever received?
The best advice was, don't be afraid to get started. You know, you're not going to be perfect from the beginning, and don't aspire to be perfect, because things change and you learn as you go. But get started, because you'll never be a bison farmer if you don't buy a bison.
That's right. One from the other. And then for me, the best advice I ever received was from an elderly farmer who we were visiting their site, and I had some interns with me, and he called me over and he said, Annie, I'm going to give you and your young interns a piece of advice. He said, don't ever hang out with people your own age for more than 30 minutes, because they know everything you do and you want to know more than that. And that has served me so well. Anyways, we want to say thank you for joining us today, and to make a little offer. Rural Action and ACEnet have designed and produced for us, we have a couple of different posters that are available for the barn, and they contain emergency information, mainly for ruminants, so that would be goats or cows or llamas, yes. Well, maybe not bison, in that you can't like pull their hoof off and say, here, kitty, let's fix that foot. But anyway, and it has emergency contact information, and so sometimes when there's something wrong, it's hard to remember what to do, and the posters, we think, they're designed by us farm women, and so we think that they are a great resource. And so if you are interested in that, or more information about Rural Action, Women Grow Ohio, or ACEnet, or even the specialty dairy project that we're working on with NCR SEER funding us, you can visit ruralaction.org, and they'll be happy to show you whatever. And you can also find a copy of the poster.